We're heading back into summertime now in Brazil, so I'm going to be a sweaty boy for this one. Let's try to get through this as fast as possible. What's up guys, my name is Doug, and it is time to review Earthgang's latest album, Mirrorland. Before we get right into it though, I would like to personally ask all of you guys who have been rocking with me for a while and enjoying the content on the channel to consider supporting the channel on Patreon. Every dollar adds up, and until now the patrons have really helped me to keep this channel up and running, but I will be able to do more than just that with some additional support on there. I'd be able to get better equipment, a nicer camera, editing software, a nice backdrop, a better PC to get back into some music production videos on the channel like I used to do, only with much higher qualities than those videos that I actually used to do. I could invest in live streaming equipment. I mean, the possibilities with your support on Patreon would be endless. Plus, it would be a really dope way for you to show the channel some love, and I'll be working on making the benefits for the patrons worthwhile, so definitely consider doing that. I would really appreciate your support. And with that out of the way, let's get back into this project. So to be honest, Mirrorland is such a breath of fresh air coming off of that weak Post Malone album. I needed an album this adventurous, fun, funky, groovy in my life, honestly. The first track, La La Challenge, starts off with a really soulful keyboard riff and a groovy bass line that immediately pulled me into the track and subsequently into the project, seeing as it's the introduction. Johnny Venus's animated vocals are so reminiscent of Andre 3000, and his vocal performance is incredible, but not just on this track, on this entire project really. It's something that really stood out to me. Ranging from quieter whispered lyrics to belting the chorus of Up, which by the way is extremely catchy and has not gotten out of my head since I first heard it. He layers his main vocals with awesome background vocals, and not just his own, but actually using choirs to add like a gospel sound to it, and always putting an emphasis on the soulful sounds and feeling of the tracks. Now I mentioned Up, and speaking of that track, it's also got some awesome hip-hop drums with a really hard-hitting 808 that plays underneath all the melodies that are being sung. The verses are all great, and they're all characterized by different vocal inflections, and they all transition into one another and into the chorus very smoothly. And speaking of smooth, top down, and it's groovy guitar, man. The feel to this track is just so fun, you know? It provides almost like a strong sense of community between the choir that's singing the chorus and the actual listener. You almost feel connected to them. The vocals are all so fun to sing along with, and they carry this awesome southern soulful feel that's really pleasant to my ears and to my personal tastes. It also features this really interesting sample of a woman counting down from 3, and then it goes into like this really funny scream that for some reason works surprisingly well for this track. It's a song that transports you straight to the American South, places like Alabama, Louisiana, cities like New Orleans, Atlanta, you know, just it immediately takes you right to that environment with the sounds, and I really love it for that. And then we move on to Bank, which is actually more of a modern trap style of music that we hear coming from those places like Atlanta, and more specifically from artists like 2 Chainz and the Migos. Although Dr. Dot's initial flow really reminds me of DaBaby, although I know he's not from Atlanta, he's actually from Cleveland, I believe. It's the chorus and the way that Johnny Venus actually pronounces the words that reminds me of that whole Atlanta Migos style. The dark pianos are very humble-esque, and there's this really interesting sound that almost sounds like the one squeaky shopping cart wheel that really adds some flavor to this beat. Again, it's an interesting sound effect that shouldn't work on a regular generic song, but it's experimental and interesting, and it works. It adds a really nice touch for this song. It's an absolute banger, and for me, I wasn't really familiar with Earthgang's music before this. It showed me that they were able to perform on darker trap style songs, showed some versatility on their part, which I thought was interesting. Proud of You almost starts off like a summertime ballad by like the Beach Boys, you know, that soft rock, beach rock type of vibe, you know? It's interesting. I wouldn't know how to classify it really. And the main guitar loops pair really nicely with the drums, the hip-hop drums, when they actually drop. I do want to specifically shout out the person who programmed those crisp hi-hats, dude. You gotta know, I absolutely love, and I mention this a lot on my channel, I love when hi-hats have that edge to them, you know? You know when the hi-hat hits and it feels like you almost have to check to see if your ears are bleeding? That's how crisp I like my hi-hats. And they do that on this track really well. The MCs on this track are thanking the people who stuck by their side and helped them through a really tough time. And it sounds really honest and sincere and doesn't come across as trying to be too deep or anything like that. We also get a great feature on this track from the legendary, dress-wearing, so much fun-having, alien language speaking, hash-slinging, sash bringing Young Thug is on this track, and he does a great job. He actually fits really well on this song, vocal tone wise, with Johnny. I almost said Johnny Manziel for some reason. What is wrong with me? Johnny Venus, since they both have those really high-pitched voices with a lot of character to them. Moving on, we get this side, and the majority of this track features really dreamy synths and a really groovy bass line too. Now, quite frankly, this beat sounds like it could have been ripped straight out of Good Kid, Mad City because of its lo-fi, jazzy elements. Johnny Venus and Dr. Dot mention the likes of XXXTentacion, Nipsey Hussle, and Sandra Bland as they talk about their paranoia due to the very unpredictable nature of daily African American life in America. It's a very vulnerable track, and I'm certain that many people will be able to relate to this one. The switch up towards the end of the track is aggressive and hard-hitting and raw, and it really reminds me of production by Tay Keith because of the bouncy hi-hats and the aggressive kicks. When we get to Swivel, I actually gave my opinions of the track in the video that I did for Revenge of the Dreamers 3, but I will let you guys know that the track has grown on me since then, and I do think that it is a very smooth, awesome track to vibe out to. Avenue is a very honest track where the MCs talk about their lives over very interesting production. The drum pattern is unconventional to say the least, and it took me a little bit to get into it, especially since it starts off reversed in the first place. But once I did finally understand the pattern, it really adds to the drunken, stuttering feel of the track. The chorus is beautifully sung, and I love the very subtle background vocals in the chorus. And when you take all the elements, it really just adds up to a very quick, wavy track. And we move on to Tequila, which is the one that I'm probably most excited about. It's definitely one of my standout tracks off this project. It features awesome performances all around, a very catchy hook, and a great T-Pain feature, but that's not really why I love this track so much. This song has this awesome Latin flavor to it that is just so appealing to me. The production is made up of awesome woodblocks, shakers, great horn arrangements, bongos, and other percussive instruments. The drum pattern fits the style of the music beautifully. And again, I have to mention how incredible to me those horn arrangements are. I mean, they make this track. Without them, this track is not at all worthy of being a standout track from this project. Just everything about that track is great to me. Blue Moon has a really touching introduction, and it goes into this really awesome James Brown swing vibe, with the bouncy drums, the awesome bass line paired with the really vibrant horns. The flute playing on this track is so good, dude. And it definitely adds a really cool touch to the production. And I gotta mention the guitar because it's really subtle, but it does so much for that swing feel to the track, I just had to mention it. I will say, I was kind of surprised that this song didn't feature Anderson .Paak. I think that he would have fit perfectly on this track, honestly. Also, the line, "Every time I got life figured out, I get bad confused," is so relatable, I may just use it as my Instagram caption for every post in the very near future. But in all, I mean, the song is great with or without that Anderson .Paak feature that I feel would have really fit well on this. Trippin' is a banger. I mean, as much of a banger as a really smooth R&B track can be, right? Seriously though, in that R&B category, this checks all the correct boxes. I mean, smooth female vocal sample, check. Awesome soulful warbly keys, check. Groovy bass line, check. Jazzy guitar plucks, check. Dreamy raspy male vocals, check. Sultry vocals from a beautiful woman, aka Kehlani, aka check. The only real issue I have with this track is the mixing on Kehlani's vocals. I feel like there's less compression on her vocals to bring them to the forefront of the track, and that kind of leads to her voice being drowned out, specifically by the bass, and being noticeably quieter than some of the other vocals on the same track. But that being said, the switch up in the beat for her verse is executed really well. I love the drum fills in the second portion of the track, and those mixing issues that I noticed did not stop this track from being a standout song from this project for me. Stuck has this lead guitar loop that just absolutely screams Red Hot Chili Peppers to me, and it makes me really nostalgic. Also, at this point in the project, I really began to notice how impressive Johnny Venus's vocal performance had been throughout this entire project, and really there hadn't been any misses. The bridge for this track has this awesome gospel-like build-up that leads into the first verse in a very satisfying way. And when I say gospel, I mean it's got the soulful organ riff and everything, where the keyboard player kind of like slides his hand across the keys. Dude, perfect. In the chorus, they seem to not only be apologizing to past lovers, but they're saying that they're still hung up on some of those same lovers and they still have feelings for them, which makes the chorus really relatable and catchy, because there are very few people who haven't been in that situation before, I'm sure. Dr. Dot kills his verse, and Aaron Ray gives us a great R&B performance to cry to, along with a great beat switch up. We move on to Fields, and Fields' main melody actually comes from the 808, which is unconventional, but it works. We hear awesome gospel vocals during the refrain, and Johnny Venus rapping over some very fun horns. Now, for the most part, the production on this track is simpler and more laid back, because the focus is really on the lyrics. The MCs talk about their roots, where they came from, and how they're never going to switch up or change who they are. And it makes for a really entertaining track, in my opinion. And the last track, Wings, is kind of the culmination of that message of never changing and staying true to yourself, but at the same time, soaring and taking flight and living your best life, overcoming all the obstacles and truly making it in life. But at the same time, it also says that after you've made it and you feel like you've made it, you should still strive to better yourself and keep learning and keep grinding, because there's always room to improve. It's a great song that closes out the project really nicely, and it features awesome bass lines, great groovy guitars, and a very bouncy drum pattern, which is kind of a theme for a lot of these tracks. So all in all, we get a project that is about growth, maturity, staying true to yourself and to your roots, never forgetting where you came from, never forgetting the people who have passed, never forgetting the people who you've lost, and trying to make amends with those people that you've lost by rebuilding burned down bridges and apologizing to them, showing maturity and growth. It says all this while giving us R&B, funk, hip-hop, some blues, some Latin vibes, a splash of rock, a pinch of jazz, some swing. I mean, in general, just Southern music. Music that is popular all over the world now, but had its origin, I mean, the Latin song had its origin in Mexico, and that came from Spain. But for the most part, aside from that one track that has the Latin vibes, music that originated in African American culture in the southern United States. It pays tribute. I was going to say homage or homage, but I don't know which one would be correct, so I'm just going to say tribute. It pays tribute to the great artists of all those genres in a really tasteful way, in my opinion. You know, they do all the genres justice, and they sound great while they're doing it. I mean, they really show the kind of magic that happens when you take all those awesome musical styles and you mesh them all together to give us the modern music that we have today. And they really show us like the best outcome of all those different styles being put together into a group. And it really is awesome to listen to. Earthgang made incredible music on this project with great lyrics and messages as well. I personally feel like this project deserves an 8. I had a blast listening to it. It was an awesome project. It's probably going to end up in my top 10. There's a whole lot of really interesting music to listen to, a whole lot of experimental sounds, but it all works very well for Earthgang, and I think that they should be really proud of this body of work. Thank you so much to everybody for watching the video. Be sure to drop your opinions on this project and on the video in the comments section. And remember, to those of you, like I said in the beginning, who have really been rocking with the channel for a long time, consider becoming a patron and supporting the channel on Patreon in order to help the channel grow. I would really appreciate it. I'll see you all in another video very soon, guys. Until then, stay safe. Peace out.